By animal control officers and animal welfare advocates now have the attention of Maine lawmakers who grilled Doak for about 2 hours today. News Center's Chris Rose was at the State House for today's hearing. He's in our newsroom now with more. Chris?
Pat, animal control officers, shelter operators, and other advocates say the state agency is slow to respond to abuse cases, always seems tied up in red tape, and in some cases doesn't respond at all. Now members of a legislative subcommittee are taking notice.
And I didn't like what I heard. The case where one dog was dead and the other 3 were on death's door, that just, to me, was not handled appropriately.
Lawmakers say they have reams of materials highlighting problems with the state's animal welfare program. One member of the subcommittee said the agency seems concerned with working with abusers to try to correct the problem when it should be using the enforcement tools it has to remove animals from abusive situations. But Director Shelley Doak defended her office, saying she does the best she can with the staff and resources she has.
Our critics suggest that we're not enforcing cruelty laws. This is false. We investigate, on average, over 500 complaint calls annually. To suggest otherwise is simply unfounded.
Several lawmakers on the committee said they want to help fix the system, but they can't do that until the director admits there are problems.
Can we move forward on this if there's still just a denial that there's a problem?
Former State Representative Robert Fisk says the hearing was a long time coming. As head of the group Maine Friends of Animals, he speaks for many animal advocates when he says the entire system should be revamped.
They could come up with a number of quick fixes and they will be positive, and I think the public outcry is significant, and I think we'll revisit this again unless we do something more significant.
Now, Maine is only one of 2 states where state government is in charge of investigating animal abuse cases. Should that change? Well, that's one of the issues the legislative subcommittee will be looking at when it meets again in November. Pat?
All right, Chris, thanks a lot. When it comes,
they've run on a situation they didn't like, and they've all said in their letters and on the material that the humane agents, either didn't respond or were very slow to respond.
Animal welfare is very, very difficult, emotional balance, and I think we are doing the best we can.
a legislative subcommittee is now looking at ways to improve the system. In national complaints they've received about the program. Shelley Doak is director of the program. Her agency is in charge of investigating animal abuse cases. But animal control officers and animal welfare advocates say the agency drags its feet on abuse cases and is too tied up in red tape while animals suffer. Lawmakers looking into the complaints say they have reams of material from local animal control officers who are frustrated with the agency.
They've run on a situation they didn't like, and they've all said in their letters and on the material that the humane agents, either didn't respond or were very slow to respond.
Animal welfare is very, very difficult, emotional balance, and I think we are doing the best we can.
A legislative subcommittee is now looking at ways to improve the system. Negotiations on 8 Maine rivers. Next, Bill Green looks at the growing problem of hunters legally hunting near crowds of non-hunters.
But first, is the state dragging its feet when it comes to responding to claims of animal abuse or cruelty? News Editor Sharon Rose has a special report next. About animals, brace yourself for this next story. It's about animal cruelty and complaints that the state is not doing enough to stop it.
Now, the complaints are nothing new. Animal lovers have been grumbling about this issue for years. But now, state lawmakers are looking into it, and they say they don't like what they're finding. News Center's Sharon Rose reports.
You don't have to look far to find cases of animal abuse in Maine. Animals maimed, severely injured, starved nearly to death. The images are heartbreaking.
We're dealing with a highly emotional issue.
The Maine Animal Welfare Program is the state agency in charge of investigating cruelty cases. Shelley Doak is the director.
Every call we get is inputted into our database and is investigated. It's assigned to a district humane agent or a state humane agent. We cover Fort Kent to Kittery.
I beg her pardon.
Ron Merrifield refutes that claim. He's been the animal control officer in the town of Wayne for 20 years, and he says he's seen the state drop the ball on cruelty cases more than once.
I know 3 cases, bad ones, where they never sent anyone out.
Merrifield outlined those cases in a letter to the State Agriculture Committee. One involved 4 German shepherds tied outside in the winter, 3 starving to death, the 4th already dead, its body frozen into the ice. Since the case happened outside of his jurisdiction, Merrifield called Augusta to report it. And what did the state do?
Nothing. Never appeared on the premises whatsoever. They just won't get off their butt and go out and earn their money. Evidently, they don't care a bit. They don't have a heart for animals, evidently.
And Merrifield isn't the only one who feels that way. Lawmakers on the Agriculture Committee say they've been overwhelmed with phone calls and letters from frustrated citizens, and they have no doubt there are some serious problems with the program. One issue is money. During the budget crunch of the early 90s, the funding for the program was slashed. Now it's funded almost entirely through dog licensing fees. Another issue is staffing. There are only 2 full-time humane agents and 6 part-time agents to cover the entire state. There used to be twice that many. And then there's training. Suffice it to say the agents don't receive much. But critics say the roots of the problem run even deeper. The director of the Maine Animal Control Association says it's a matter of attitude.
The attitude that animal welfare has is that they do their enforcement through education. Well, the problem is there's a difference between enforcement and education. And you can only educate so many people for so long before you have to start enforcing the laws that we have.
Bob Fisk, the head of the group Maine Friends of Animals, agrees. But he says in order to have stronger enforcement, the whole system needs to be revamped. Right now, animal welfare is part of the Division of Animal Health and Industry within the State Department of Agriculture. That division has a lot of other responsibilities. They're listed here on the department's website: testing milk, inspecting dairy farms, monitoring livestock for diseases. The investigation of animal abuse is barely noted.
But it really needs to be looked at thoroughly all the way through, and then we think a whole new structure put in place.
It's unlikely the program will be taken out of the Agriculture Department. Agriculture Commissioner Robert Speer says he's not about to let that happen. But he does admit some significant changes may need to be made.
As the commissioner, I am willing to take a good look at this, and if there are areas to improve upon, then we want to improve upon them.
Animal advocates say they hope those improvements come fast. They say while people are talking, there are still countless animals out there suffering and waiting for help. Sharon Rose, News Center.
Commissioner Speer has been meeting with various groups as well as members of his own staff to come up with solutions. He plans to submit a report to the Agriculture Committee during its next meeting a week from today. Joe Cupo's forecast.